Good evening, everyone. Tonight I'll be continuing my series, covering creepy Native American sites. My previous video centered on North America. This entry will be focusing more on Central and South America. I hope you enjoyed the video. Let's begin. Quintana Roo is in southeast Mexico, right above Belize and across from Cuba. The province is advertised to tourists as the gateway to the Mexican Caribbean, featuring luxurious hotels, along with beautiful rivers and beaches. The jungle dominates many parts of Quintana Roo, and is said to be inhabited by Juan del Monte, a shadowy figure who imitates human voices to lure his prey into the jungle. He was born from Mother Nature at the beginning of creation, and entrusted with protecting and caring for plants and animals in this region. He took his job seriously, became increasingly jaded, as he saw generations of people invade his territory and try to harm those he was supposed to protect. Juan del Monte began to lure and hunt those near the jungle. The most famous local tale surrounding him is called the legend of Pancho. Pancho was a 7-year-old who lived with his mother and father on a small property during the colonial era. His father was at work in the pastures near their home. Pancho's mother gave him a meal and told him to deliver it to his father. He passed the edge of the mountainous jungle near the end of their property. As he went out, he heard his father call, "I'm over here, son. Come with me." Pancho followed the voice and entered the jungle. Hours passed, and his family went out into the jungle to look for Pancho. They found him alive and well, asleep on top of a rock in the midst of the wilderness. Those who know the legend tell those entering this area to first pray to St. John the Baptist before they venture in. It's said that Juan del Monte will kidnap individuals or send venomous creatures to attack them if they don't follow these guidelines. Chichen Itza was the center of the Mayan Empire from 750 to 1200 AD. The most well-recognized part of this complex is called the Temple of Kukulkan, or El Castillo. It was an example of the Mayan interest in astronomy, we'll get into that shortly, and was a product of the Toltecs, who invaded and then merged with the Mayan Empire at around 1000 AD. The temple has 4 series of steps that run up each of its 4 corners. Including the top step, there are a total of 365 steps, marking the days in a year. Another strange aspect of the architecture is revealed twice a year on the spring and autumn equinoxes. A shadow falls on the pyramid during these events and forms the shape of a serpent. As the shadows lengthen, the snake creeps down the steps to connect with a stone serpent head at the base of the stairs on one side. Chichen Itza was fed by water from sinkhole wells. It's recorded that young women were thrown into these sinkholes as a sacrifice to the rain god that lived in its depths. Bones, jewelry, and other precious materials have been found in these wells. The city was abandoned in the 1400s, and the inhabitants left no clue as to what caused them to flee. This legend is set against the backdrop of the jungles of Guyana, but is primarily centered in the Iwokrama rainforest within the center of the country. The Dai Dai is a spirit whose story continues to be passed down within the Amerindian community native to the area. It is a protector of mineral resources and inhabits the area around places rich with material that can be mined. The Dai Dai is also a shapeshifter, taking a form to seduce and prey on lone travelers or individuals interested in taking the wealth within the jungle. It will hang out with its target, wait until they are fast asleep, and then take the form of either a jaguar, giant bat, or hybrid of multiple predatory creatures before taking them out. Snake Island can be found off the coast of Brazil, roughly south of Sao Paulo. Sailors were warned for centuries to avoid the island, as it houses a variety of venomous snake species, and it remains closed to the public today. I did research on this for an old iceberg video, but was left with the following question. How did these snakes make it onto the island, which is so far from the mainland? The legend of how all these venomous snakes found their home is connected to a group of pirates. The pirates, facing heat from another group of raiders on their tail, supposedly buried their cargo on the island and unleashed venomous snakes to prevent others from investigating the area further. The snakes flourished and quickly took over the local ecosystem. The official story harkens back thousands of years and is far more interesting, at least in my opinion. The island was connected to mainland Brazil through a land bridge during the last Great Ice Age. The oceans were low, and most of the water was frozen in glacial formations. Animals roamed the area, and a population of snakes called what became Snake Island home. It was around 9000 BC, when gradual warming ended the Ice Age, and the sea levels rose. The island was isolated, and the creatures on the island were separated from the mainland by 90 miles of water. The species called the jararaca snake flourished. The population grew too large, and the snakes began to starve. Natural selection began, and the snakes began to grow better at hunting birds. Their venom grew more potent, allowing the snakes to get to their meal before it got too far away. This species evolved into the lancehead viper, an incredibly deadly species that can take out a human adult in less than an hour after the initial bite. Lake Titicaca is the highest navigable lake in the world, located at 12,500 feet, and lies between Bolivia and Peru. It borders a tundra plain on its southern edge, which was once the city of Tiwanaku, an ancient Andean city that flourished in the early 1st millennium AD. The lake was considered to be the center of the universe to the Inca culture, and was a sacred site for them. Inca creation myths state that this place was where 3 individuals survived a flood in the distant past, sent by the creator, Viracocha. The area around the lake was first inhabited in the mid-2000s BC, and the place was eventually abandoned, as the altitude and cold climate made large-scale farming difficult. The 2 islands on the lake, Moon and Sun Island, were inhabited by the Incas, and man-made islands floated on its surface during this period as well. One of the most interesting parts of this entire entry are the underwater ruins. Stories say that a civilization built a city close to the shores of the lake. The water level rose thousands of years ago, and the city was submerged. Expeditions into the lake began in 1956, and the ruins of buildings were discovered beneath the water. The exact cause of the city's descent is still unknown. Relics and a temple were uncovered in 2000, and it's thought that the area was inhabited by a developed civilization far before the estimated date of human settlement in 2000 BC. El Zotz, which means bat in Mayan, is near the Buena Vista escarpment in Guatemala. This city was inhabited by the Mayan culture between 300 and 1250 AD. It had multiple temples, a great palace, and many tombs. The story I'm about to tell involves a discovery within a tomb here. Megalodon teeth, which were taken from a extinct species of giant shark, were used as sacred offerings at multiple sites of worship. A cache of these and other shark teeth were found in a tomb in El Zotz. The Mayans were fascinated by giant sharks and had myths connected to the ancient megalodon. Sipak, the shark monster, sometimes described as a more crocodilian creature, was part of their creation story. I could find few details, but I'll tell you what I could find about Sipak. He was a shark-like gigantic sea monster who was slain by a demigod, and his body was split apart and used to form the continents. The megalodon teeth were said to be the teeth of Sipak. The Alquaz were an indigenous tribe that lived in an area in what is now present-day Tlaxcala province, east of Mexico City. They were allies to the Aztecs and attacked the Spanish conquistadors in the early 1500s. In 1520, a group of tribesmen ambushed a Spanish convoy and took over 450 people, including men, women, and children, captive. They began to sacrifice one captive every day to various gods. Retaliatory force was sent in 1521 and attacked the Alcawaz, sparing no one. They were too late. The last of the prisoners had been taken out a few days earlier. The Spanish burnt the city down and beheaded the statues of the various native gods. This particular entry is a Mesoamerican language that has survived into present day. Nahuatl, also called Nahuatl, was an ancient language that was spoken throughout the Mexican Valley, a highlands area that was inhabited by many pre-colonial cultures. It dates from the 13th century AD and was used widely as a diplomatic or trading language for these people groups. The language survived the arrival of the conquistadors and was so respected by the Spanish that they chose to keep the language and even translated the Bible into it. In 1570, King Philip II declared it the official language of New Spain, the colonies. The countries of Guatemala and Yucatan got their names from this language. We found a huge collection of human skeleton material, around 9,000 bones. This statement was made by James Brady, a professor of Mesoamerican anthropology, after he returned from an expedition in 2015. This massive collection of bones was discovered in a cave within the Cayo district of Belize. It all started in 2006 when a thief traveling through the countryside fell down a rock face into a cave. It was a 60-foot drop, but he managed to survive the fall. He looked around and realized he had landed on a massive pile of bones that stretched in every direction. He was eventually rescued by some local Mennonite farmers and recuperated in a local hospital. The thief had unintentionally discovered one of the largest Mayan sacrificial sites ever recorded. The cave was named the Midnight Terror Cave in 2006 after this discovery. Further research revealed that many of the individuals in the cave were children, and their remains came from multiple different cultures of the time. Some remains belonged to citizens from places as far as 200 miles away, and no one from the local culture was found within the cave. The region, including portions of Mexico, Guatemala, and Belize, experienced severe droughts in periods throughout the first millennium AD that lasted generations. Crops died and towns faded as the droughts continued. As a result, the Mayans raided their neighbors and made sacrifices to their rain god. The Warlocks of Chiloe were a group of male practitioners of witchcraft who inhabited the Chiloe archipelago off the coast of the southern portion of Chile. This cult was said to have been founded far before the arrival of the conquistadors, and used the superstition of the natives to achieve political control over the island. The cult survived the arrival of the Spanish, and lasted almost through the entirety of the 19th century. Their ceremonies were said to be cruel, and applicants reportedly had to spend 40 days in a freezing cold body of water before making a pact with the Warlocks. They next had to take out a person who was close to them and use their remains to make their kit. In 1768, one of the members acquired a book of European black magic and started to organize the surviving members into a shadow government that secretly controlled the administration of the archipelago. Their base was in the cave of Quigcabi, in a district of the same name. Members of this organization were put on one of the last recorded witch trials in the world in 1880. Many gave dubious accounts that eventually formed the tales that were told about the cult. In the end, several of the sentences given to these prisoners were overturned, and the surviving members of this society were acquitted. Alright, that's it for tonight. I hope you enjoyed this look into the legends and locations within Central and South America. It was a lot of fun, but it was far more difficult to find relatively obscure topics to cover for these areas compared to the North American video. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to support me further, you can either subscribe or look at the links in the description. I'll see you around. Take care, and good night.